this book is more about helping coaches maybe become better coaches. And I that's one of the reasons I had so much fun writing it. And, you know, I talk a lot about caring for your players, and different coaches do that in different ways.
Yep.
You don't have to be a guy that's going around hugging all your players. That's not what. But I had, like, my high school baseball coach was phenomenal. I knew he cared for me, but he probably didn't speak 100 words to me during a season. But man, I knew he had my back, and when he did speak, it meant something.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Clearing the Bases, the podcast where we step up to the plate and dive deep into the world of youth baseball. I'm your host, Jimmy Filangieri. You know, on this show, we discuss all things related to the preparation and development of youth baseball players, coaches, and yes, even parents. So sit back, settle in, and get ready to hear from some of the greatest baseball minds out there.
But that wasn't in my personality. I was more of a relationship person. And I loved my players, and I hope some of them at least loved me. And it was like, hey, we're going to battle together. And I got your back, and I know you got my back, and we're gonna compete. And but we're gonna do it because not only do we want to win, but we care about each other. And so that first team that I mentioned earlier, it was so easy to develop that within that team because they were hungry, and that we had good leadership within the team. So it was really, really good. And so I thought, man, I want to duplicate this.
You know, to be able to reach the highest levels of this game, yeah, you got to work hard. You got to get in the cages. You got to do your strength and conditioning. You know, you got to throw your bullpens. There's all of this physical stuff that you need to do, and you need to work hard at it. But don't forget that you also have to get better at the mental side of the game. And one of the ways you can do that is increase baseball IQ by downloading and using the 6-Tool app.
For baseball coaches like you, every game brings measurable progress. However, game time isn't the time for trial and error learning. Instead, have a proactive approach. Use 6-Tool, the best baseball player development tool on the market. We provide a platform to level up your coaching strategy by helping you to quickly identify and address your players' knowledge of the game. By using our easy-to-implement interactive player quizzes, you can assess position-specific issues, overall baseball IQ, and much more. Win more games and develop better overall baseball players with effective off-the-field training. Visit us at 6-tool.com. 6-Tool. Get ahead in the game.
As you know, on this show, we connect with baseball coaches, players, and leaders who are making a difference in the game and in the lives of those they impact. We talk about more than just baseball. We talk about leadership, sportsmanship, character, integrity, discipline, and the purpose behind what we do. Well, today, we're joined by a man whose name is etched into the history of college baseball and who embodies all of those values and so much more. And trust me, today's episode is one you're going to want to grab a pen, a notebook, and you know what? You might even need a helmet because you're about to get hit with a coaching clinic, a life lesson, and maybe a laugh or two. This icon of the baseball world became the head coach at the University of Kentucky at just 26 years old, making him one of the youngest Division I head coaches in the country at that time. Over the next 25 seasons, he built Kentucky baseball into a respected SEC program defined by integrity, development, and consistency, finishing with over 700 career wins. When he retired in 2003, He ranked third all-time in SEC history in wins, behind only two legends, Ron Polk of Mississippi State and Skip Bertman of LSU. And within the University of Kentucky's athletic history, his 700-plus wins places him second all-time across all sports, trailing only the legendary basketball coach Adolph Rupp. But the numbers only tell part of the story. This coach's true legacy is in the lives he's shaped, mentoring 17 future major leaguers and countless others who have gone on to succeed in life because of the lessons he taught about faith, humility, and doing things the right way. Since retiring from Kentucky, he's continued his mission through Score International, leading baseball mission trips that combine the game he loves with service and faith. He also continues to pour into the coaching community as publisher of Inside Pitch magazine, which is the official magazine of the American Baseball Coaches Association. He's a member of the ABCA Hall of Fame, the Kentucky Sports Hall of Fame, and the UK Athletics Hall of Fame. But this is what's really important. He's a true servant leader who continues to inspire coaches and players around the world. He is the author of the book, Coaching with Purpose, and it's my honor and privilege to welcome to the show Coach Keith Madison. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Hey, thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate that. And I was kind of chuckling within myself during the introduction because mentioning me and Adolph Rupp in the same paragraph, I was afraid lightning was going to strike or something.
Well, I did my
homework. Such a great coach.
Yeah, I did my homework, and when I saw that, I said, I got to put this in there.
But a quick story about that.
Sure.
The historical Memorial Coliseum where Adolph Rupp coached most of his years, my office was in that building for probably 20 of my 25 years of coaching. And when I moved into that building, I occupied an office that once Adolph Rupp used as his office. And before that, Bear Bryant used it for his office when he coached football at Kentucky. I think that was back in the 40s. So I used to just sit in my office and say, Lord, bring some of that on me.
And you were very young.
I was young. Yeah, I was. I was hired at 26. My birthday's in October, so by the time the season rolled around, my first year, I was a mature 27-year-old.
That's fantastic. Look, to be able to coach at a school like that at that age speaks volumes of your commitment to coaching, and that's incredible. Not many 26-year-olds can do something like that. So
yeah, well, a lot of people helped me. I felt like it was first of all, Ron Polk. I had the honor of working for him at Mississippi State right before Kentucky as a pitching coach, sort of a graduate assistant / pitching coach, and I was totally intimidated about even applying for that job. And he actually talked me into it. He said, hey, I'll make a call for you. And I didn't have any dream that I could get that job. And I was interviewing for a junior college job in a Midwestern state. And my wife, who had traveled around with me when I was a minor league baseball player and a high school coach, and then going to Starkville, Mississippi, she made some sacrifices for me. So after the interview for this junior college job, I was so excited because they offered the job to me. And on the way back to Kentucky to visit our parents, she said, "You mean you liked it here?" and I said, "Yeah, they've got a brand new baseball field. I get to be a head coach." And she said, "There's nothing here but corn." So needless to say, I didn't take that job. But what that did, Jimmy, was it motivated me to call another legendary guy, Cliff Hagan, who played for the St. Louis Hawks and was either a 2-time or 3-time All-American at Kentucky. In Kentucky, his name's mentioned, sort of like you mentioned Yogi Berra in New York. He's just a legendary guy. And so I told my dad I was going to call Cliff Hagan to see if I could come up and interview for the job. And my dad said, "You're calling Cliff Hagan?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to call him." So I don't know how this happened, but I got through to him and I said, "Hey, I'm in Kentucky visiting my family. Is it okay if I come up and talk to you about the position you have open?" He said, "Sure. Can you be here at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning?" And I think he sort of liked my boldness. And so he thought, this young guy's not afraid to call me. Maybe he can do a job. So anyway, he ended up offering me the job, and the rest is history. But I love my time in Kentucky.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So take us back a little bit, because I know you were a high school coach, but let's go back even further. You were drafted right out of high school, right?
Well, I didn't. Actually, I signed with the Montreal Expos after the draft. I didn't get drafted because nobody had seen me.
Oh, okay.
I was from such a small town, a very, very rural area of Kentucky, and I had never met, when I graduated from high school, I'd never met a college coach in person, and I had never met a pro scout or anything like that. And then when I started playing American Legion baseball, we were traveling around the state in some of the larger towns, and scouts saw me, but it was after the draft, so I signed as a free agent, and it worked out fine. They paid for my college education, and I didn't get a big bonus or anything, but it was a great opportunity.
Sure, that's fantastic, and it was at 17 years old.
Yeah.
So you like to do it. You like to do everything young.
I know, and believe me, I was not, as I indicated earlier, I was not a mature 17-year-old. I get this image of this kid from the hills of Kentucky, going to spring training with a straw sticking out of his mouth and wearing overalls or something. It wasn't that bad, but it was close.
So you went, from high school, and then, you went on to play professionally, and you did really well in the Expos organization.
I did. I moved fast.
Yeah.
I threw really hard at that time. I mean, I would probably be average nowadays, but for that era, I threw really hard, and the Expos were a new organization then, and they don't even exist anymore. That shows you how old I am. But I went from a short season A club to AAA.
Wow.
It's just, that just doesn't happen.
No.
Hardly ever. And I was the youngest guy in the International League. And I remember playing in Syracuse, New York, and Rochester, New York. Rochester had Don Baylor and Bobby Gritch in that lineup. Wow, they were really good. I think they had a guy named Terry Crowley. I don't know if you remember that name.
I do.
He was a great player.
Yep.
So, I was facing grown men, and Don Baylor intimidated me so much because he was huge, and he stood right on the plate.
Yes.
And I thought, man, if I hit this dude, he's going to come out and just pop my head off, just twist it off and throw it out in the outfield. So, but he was an intimidating guy for a 19-year-old kid to pitch against. So
when your pro career was over, so what did you go into teaching and then coaching? So how did that end up?
Yeah, I had a cousin that was teaching in Polk County, Florida. That's Winter Haven, Lakeland, that area, Central Florida. And so I got released by the Reds, and my wife had already graduated from college, and I was just graduating. And he said, "Hey, why don't you come down and I'll help you guys get teaching jobs, and if you want to be involved in baseball and coach, I'm sure they'd love to have you with your experience." So I went to a small town called Lake Wales. It's a beautiful little town, and I started teaching and coaching there. And Jimmy, I don't know how to explain this, but as a professional baseball player, you kind of have to look out for yourself. You're trying to get promoted. You're trying to get you're trying to make it to the big leagues, and you're constantly thinking about how can I do this, how can I do that, what can I improve on to get there. And then suddenly I'm thrust into this situation where I'm responsible for these teenagers, these young men that are 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. And it took me from a selfish position and always thinking about myself to a very unselfish position to where I was, responsible for these young men. And I absolutely fell in love with these kids. They were incredible.
Yeah.
And, the bus rides, we had so much fun.
Yeah.
And I remember, I was young then, so I was long tossing with them, and they would come over to my house and try to get me to go fishing with them. And, it was just, I have coaches all the time when I go to the ABCA convention and speak at other clinics. They'll say, Coach, how can I get into college baseball? They're high school coaches. And I tell them, hey, man, the most fun I ever had coaching really was at the high school level. Yeah. Because the kids at that age, they're still okay with hanging out with the coach, and they want to pick his brain, and they're curious, and they're asking for help. Whereas at the college level, by the time a college coach gets them, they've had several youth coaches, a high school coach. Nowadays they've had personal training. They've played travel baseball.
Yeah. And
they've got all this stuff in their own mind figured out. Yeah. And they feel like sometimes they don't need the coach's help.
Yeah. Just
put me in the lineup. And so, of course, when coaches still are very much needed at the college level. But so anyway, it was so much fun for me to coach at that high school level.
Yeah. I mean, I love it for the same reason that you just said. Even though, you were closer to their age when you coached them, and I'm much older than they are. Believe it or not, Keith, we still have a hell of a lot of fun, laughing, joke, because I'm the type of guy I don't take myself too seriously. I mean, when we have to get things done, yes, we have to get things done, and yeah, I'm going to be tough. But the rest of the time, let's have some fun, because otherwise it's not worth it.
And you know what? That's called connecting. You're connecting with those young players, and if you don't connect with people, you can't coach them. So exactly. That's a special thing.
Yeah. So okay. So we're coaching high school baseball, and how do you wind up at Mississippi State from there?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. See, I look back on my life, Jimmy, and I feel like I see now at my advanced age that these things weren't accidents. I mean, most of these things, just the way I was scouted for a professional position, it was what I call a God thing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't anything. And just calling Cliff Hagan and asking him for an interview, it took some guts. But why would he hire a 26-year-old guy? And then I get to Lake Wales High School after my minor league career, and the first year I was an assistant varsity baseball coach and assistant varsity basketball coach, which was great because I needed, even though I knew baseball and I knew some basketball, I needed to learn how to coach. And I worked in basketball, I worked for a veteran coach, and we had every player on our team was an African-American kid, and the head coach was African-American, and he taught me so much about how to coach these kids, and I loved it. And then, of course, in the spring, I coached baseball, and the head coach was just maybe 3 years older than me. He was a young guy too, but he had played for Ron Polk at the beginning of Ron Polk's coaching career at Georgia Southern University down in Statesboro, Georgia. So anyway, my second year, I was the varsity coach. He left to take another position, and I became the head coach. And he told me, he said, hey, you know what you're talking about. You've been around the game. You need to coach at the college level. And that sounded good to me at that time. And he said, I'm going to call my former coach, Ron Polk, and tell him about you. And, a week or two later, I get a phone call from Ron Polk. And I'm going, wow. That's pretty cool. And so the ABCA convention was in Miami that year. I think it was the January of '78. And he said, "Are you going to the ABCA convention?" And I said, "What is the ABCA convention? I don't know what that is." And he explained it to me, and he said, "It's going to be in Miami. You can just drive down." And so, I drove 3 or 4 hours, whatever it was, down to Miami to meet Coach Polk and saw this convention. It was much smaller then, but it was still large. And just listening to all these guys talk baseball, it was like, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah.
And then I had a great meeting with Coach Polk, and within a few weeks, he offered me a position at Mississippi State because Mark Johnson, who was the Hall of Fame coach at Texas A&M, was the head assistant coach at that time for Ron Polk, and Ron Polk was the head coach. Both of those guys are hitting guys, infield guys, outfield guys. They didn't want to handle pitchers. They wanted somebody that knew a little bit about pitching, so they didn't have to mess with the knuckleheads. And so they gave me a chance to do that, and really coach some really talented players there. And then just a year later, I'm interviewing for the Kentucky job. So that's how I met Ron Polk, and we have remained very close friends for many, many years. Yeah. I consider him my mentor.
I've never met him, but I can tell you this: he's influenced me a lot. And I have his book,
Ron Polk's baseball playbook.
Baseball playbook. So I have it. And people out there, if you don't have that book, go out and get it, because if you're a baseball coach, if you want to know anything, how can I do this better? How can I approach this better? It's all in there.
It's all in there. I mean, everything from how to maintain your field,
to
how to get the bunt down. He covers everything.
Yeah.
And it's people call it the baseball Bible.
Yeah.
And it's there's no telling how many of those books he sold. He probably made good money at the end of his coaching career. I bet he made more money selling books.
Well, I mean, I can tell you it's been priceless for me.
Yeah.
Anytime I say, geez, I could probably do this. You know what? Let me look in the playbook, and I'll look it up, and there you go. It's right there. And, again, there's probably a million books out on different things, but this is coming from Ron Polk. So, I like to believe that that's the way we do it.
Yeah, and one of the things, Jimmy, that makes that book special is Ron Polk is the most detailed individual I've ever been around.
Yes. And
so his attention to detail is one of the things that made him a great coach. Of course, his knowledge and his he's just an interesting personality. But I'll give you an example. Like in the fall practices, he would spend probably 30 minutes every day for 2 weeks just on leads at first base.
Yes.
And that kind of detail. So just think about it. If you're a freshman, by your junior year, you know so much about base running because, he's so detailed in his approach.
Yeah.
And it's the same with infield play, turning the double play, cutoffs and relays, everything. He's like that, and so all that stuff's in the book.
Yeah.
And I tell you, especially early in my career, I went to that book a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I do. And it's funny you say that about, leads off of first base, because that's a pet peeve of mine. When I get kids at the high school level and they don't know how to take a lead off of first base, It just makes my head explode. I won't spend 30 minutes, at every, 30 minutes on it, but we'll spend a good 10, 15 minutes on it, but multiple times, and we'll keep doing it and do it. And believe it or not, in the current environment, the way the players are, it takes a long time to teach them how to take that lead so that it's
no doubt.
So that it's automatic.
And having put on so many clinics in the Dominican Republic, one of the differences between Dominican baseball players and American baseball players. American baseball players probably have a lot more knowledge of, technique and things like that. But I love watching the Dominican kids run the bases. There's no fear.
Yeah.
Because they play every day. They play pickup games every day.
Yeah.
And so taking a lead, they're very comfortable. They run the bases with freedom. And then I come back to the States, and I see how stiff some of our players are on the bases.
Yes.
They don't know how to take a lead. They look like they're going to get picked off any second instead of being relaxed.
Yeah.
And it sort of reminds me of if you put a guy on a basketball court and he has to play defense against a quick guard. He better be relaxed and quick. He can't be stiff.
Yeah.
It's the same with, base running and stealing second base or going from first to third. You have to be relaxed and confident, and you are giving those players confidence when you spend that time teaching them how to do it, because with confidence, with knowledge and instruction comes confidence.
Sure. Yeah. I believe what you just explained is, and I say this all the time, it's the players nowadays are paralyzed by fear, and they're also paralyzed by being overcoached.
No doubt.
So that's what, I believe, because I tell my players all the time, I'll use the example of base running, okay? Steal a base. What's the worst thing that could happen? You get thrown out?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get him next time.
Yeah. It's not the end of the world if you get thrown out.
Yeah, it happens all the time. So, give it your best shot, and, don't be, like you said, be loose, be relaxed, and whatever happens, happens. And, if we got to drill it more, we'll drill it more. That's all.
And you've seen it a million times. That's why it's not always the fastest runner who becomes a good base runner. It's the player that's relaxed and loose on the bases that has the knowledge on how big of a lead can I get? Yeah. Well, the only way to know that is to challenge the pitcher or the catcher, and that takes some guts to do that. Yeah. You might get yelled at by the coach a little bit, but hey, that's how you learn, right?
That's it. I always go back to years ago. I had a player. He was a catcher. He was stocky. He wasn't very tall. He didn't. Let's put it this way. He didn't have a runner's build. Okay. And when he played for me that year, he stole the most bases on the team because he wasn't afraid. He tried new things. He was smart. He read the pitchers and, he did what he had to do. And it was almost effortless that he would steal a base.
I've seen that, and it's fun to watch guys like that. He may not have been a tremendous athlete, but he was a good baseball player.
Exactly. But okay, so let's go to, you're at Kentucky now, and from what I understand, when you got there, Kentucky wasn't, when you got there, what it was when you left there. So talk a little bit about that. What'd you walk into?
Well, I walked into, and I learned quickly the reason that Cliff Hagan wasn't seeking a really experienced coach is because he wasn't willing at that time to pay the salary of a really experienced coach. So the budget was the lowest budget in the Southeastern Conference. The facilities were last probably in the Southeastern Conference. And our scholarships were probably, we had fewer scholarships than the NCAA maximum. Yeah. So we were behind in everything. So the year before I got there, Jimmy, they broke the school record for losses.
Oh, wow.
And the good news is I had everybody back from that team. The bad news is I had everybody back from that team. But it was really, really good. Those guys, first of all, the coach before me, even though they didn't win, he did a great job recruiting. I had some really good, talented players on that team. And they were so hungry for a fresh start because they were embarrassed about the year before. And they all knew who Ron Polk was. They knew that, hey, this guy coached under Ron Polk. Plus, he played, professional baseball. And I was young. So, not that I deserved it, but I was like E.F. Hutton. Everything I said, they listened to it. And I had a young assistant coach who was a part-time coach. I was a part-time coach, believe it or not. I didn't have benefits. My wife was pregnant. It was like, what are we going to do? Yeah. But the people in Kentucky, they just took care of us. And then we broke the school record for wins in my first year at Kentucky after the same team had broken the school record for losses. So I thought, man, this is fun. This is really fun. And I just put my heart into it. And the situation got better. Our facilities improved. Our budget improved. Everything about the situation improved because, people like winners, and it's just the way it is. And they will support a winner, and we got tremendous support from the community.
That's fantastic. So talk to us a little bit, because I know, like you had said, the facilities weren't good. What did it look like after 26 years?
Oh, much better. It was, it really looked like sort of an average high school field.
Yeah.
To give you an example, the outfield fences were 6 feet high.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's the most dangerous height
Wow.
that you can have. I don't know who thought of that. And so I was scared to death every time my outfielders were, going to make a play in a gap or whatever, or back over their head. And so one of the first things I did is I went to Mr. Hagan. I said, we need a new outfield fence. He said, why? You got one. And I said, well, it's 6 feet tall. And he said, well, what's wrong with that?
Somebody's going to get
well,
killed.
What's wrong with that is if one of those players gets hurt, their parents are probably going to sue the athletic department. and so then he started listening. But, so we made those improvements gradually. And lo and behold, about 15 or 16 years, maybe 17 years after that, the facility was named after Cliff Hagan, the Cliff Hagan Stadium.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah.
So he started allowing us to do more things, and he started supporting us better. And then CM Newton came along and spent more money for baseball. It just kept getting better.
Yeah.
It was a high school field, and when I left, it was a miniature Wrigley Field. It had the brick and the chairback seating and a new press box, and
Oh, wow.
a beautifully manicured field, great bullpens. It had all that, but now with Nick Mingione's leadership and his success, it just keeps getting better. They have a relatively new stadium it looks like a miniature Major League Stadium. It's phenomenal.
Wow.
So the facilities at Kentucky are now probably, I would say, easily in the top 10 in the nation.
Wow.
If not the top 5. So it's a great facility.
Well, didn't they just host the regional? What was it, last year, the year before?
Yeah, the year before,
Yeah.
and they made it to the World Series. Had a great year. Nick Mingione, who is a native New Yorker.
Oh, okay.
He kind of grew up in Florida for most of his life, but he was born in New York, and he still has a little bit of the New York accent, I can tell. But he is a fantastic coach.
Yeah.
And a great leader of young men. He's done a wonderful job.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, to be, the head coach at Kentucky, you can't be a slouch. You have to be, on top of your game, right?
Yeah, and he definitely is.
Yeah.
He definitely is.
So it had to be interesting for you because, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because I got so many things I want to cover, but it just seemed interesting to me. So you were coaching with Ron Polk at Mississippi State, then you went to Kentucky. Didn't you play against him?
I did, yeah.
How was that? How was that?
Oh, wow. I saw a different side of Ron Polk. When I played against him, I saw the more competitive nature of Ron Polk, and the way, because of the respect he earned, he could intimidate umpires.
Oh, really?
Big time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and do it without even acting like Lou Piniella. He could really do it. And I remember playing against him and thinking, oh man, it actually got mad at him because he's intimidating the umpires,
Yeah.
And so a quick story, I can't resist this, about playing against Coach Polk. So early in my career, it was 81, I had this reliever on my staff by the name of Jeff Keener. He ended up playing in the major leagues, but he threw from that low 3/4 arm slot, and he had just a nasty slider, and his sinker was phenomenal. And he led the nation in strikeouts per inning. His record at the end of the year as a reliever was 13-1.
Whoa.
So he was an All-American. But anyway, we're down there and in Starkville, Mississippi, playing Mississippi State. Huge crowd. I mean, they pack them in down there. Yeah. And so it's raining, and it's obvious that the game should be called. And but Mississippi State's, when I bring Jeff in, Mississippi State's got a 1-run lead, and so we need to play another inning or two in order for the game to be official. So Coach Polk, every time the umpire would start to talk to him, Coach Polk would just do this. He would, no, we're going to play, and I finally said, hey, who's in charge here? Is Coach Polk in charge? Or are you in charge? And the umpire said, well, I'm in charge. And I said, well, it's obviously too wet to play, and it's raining like crazy. And he said, well, I'm in charge. I'll take care of it. So I did a mound visit, and I told Keener, my pitcher, I said, the very first pitch to this hitter, I want it to go 30 feet over his head into the screen behind the plate. and hitters are a little bit leery about facing Keener anyway, because he was, he had that Eckersley type arm angle, and maybe a little lower, and he was just a strikeout machine. So sure enough, well, first of all, Jeff said, Coach, are you sure? And I said, I'm absolutely sure. So he threw this ball, and it didn't go 30 feet. It had to go 45 feet up into the backstop.
That's great.
And so I walk out of the dugout, and I yell at the umpire. I said, would you want to hit right now? And the umpire said no, and he called the game. So Coach Polk was so mad at me for doing that.
Well,
we had a lot of fun.
You played it. You played it perfect.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's jump into a little bit about your coaching philosophy, your approach, okay? Let's start with your core values, your culture, that type of thing. Talk to me about that. Like, what was it like at Kentucky, and what do you believe as a coach?
I didn't hear the word culture for my first 15 years of coaching, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew innately what it was, but that word just wasn't tossed around like it is now.
Yeah.
But it's a great thing. It's a great thing for coaches to build and develop in their program. But I would say, without even knowing about the word culture, I found out early in my career at Kentucky that I couldn't be Ron Polk. Our personalities are very different, and our approach to the game is different. And just like with Ron Polk, his number one gift was getting his players so prepared before a game by all the instruction that he gave them in fall practice, and every day in practice he was so organized. His players believed that they were going to win because they knew they were better prepared than the other team. Mm-hmm. So, I wasn't as organized and as detail-oriented as Coach Polk. I wish I could have been, but that wasn't in my personality. I was more of a relationship person, and I loved my players, and I hope some of them at least loved me, and it was like, hey, we're going to battle together. And I got your back, and I know you got my back, and we're going to compete, but we're going to do it because not only do we want to win, but we care about each other. And so that first team that I mentioned earlier, it was so easy to develop that within that team because they were hungry, and we had good leadership within the team. So it was really, really good. And so I thought, man, I want to duplicate this with all my teams. And with some teams, it was easier than others. And to be very honest with you, there were some years that I didn't feel like the team bought into that culture, and we didn't have as much success during those years. So it became obvious to me that part of the success that we're going to have at Kentucky is going to be because we're going to believe in each other, and we're going to compete for each other. And yeah, we want to win, but we want to see our teammates win.
Yeah.
And so, to me, the number one thing that I could tell coaches that are listening right now is that unless you believe in your players and unless they know that you believe in them, you're never going to get the max out of them.
Yeah.
But I know in my experience as a player, I can just rattle off names right now, the coaches and managers that believed in me. And those guys are held in high esteem. They may have been tough.
Yeah.
They may have been demanding, but they believed in me, and I was going to give my best for them. Now, I played for other guys that I didn't think believed in me, and it was harder for me to give my best for them. Sure. I wanted to do it for myself. But when you get players buying into, hey, I'm competing not only for myself, but I'm competing for my teammates and for my coach, you got something special going on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's something that I tell my players all the time. And believe it or not, the way it usually winds up is, let's say we're talking about hitting. And one of the biggest problems I have at the high school level is making players understand where the contact point is and letting the ball travel. They're always reaching for the ball.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I'll tell them, I'll say the reason why that happens is because you don't trust yourself. You don't trust your hands. You don't trust that you could let that ball travel and still get to it. I said, you know what? You have to believe in yourself. And then I'll tell the player, I say, look, I'll tell you this right off the bat. I believe in you. I know you can do it. I'm behind you. I got your back. Now you got to believe in yourself. Okay,
absolutely.
Let's go.
That's it right there, Jimmy.
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's good stuff.
Yeah. Whether or not they believe me is another story, but at least they say it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're not going to ever believe it if you don't say it.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about common pitfalls that coaches face. I'm sure you probably had a million of them in your career, and how did we deal with them? Or how did you deal with them?
I mean, one of the greatest pitfalls that I was challenged with is early in my career at Kentucky was the lack of resources. And, competing in a great league and having the lack of resources was an uphill climb. And I could have either become bitter or I could become better. And so I took it upon myself to just not let the negatives control my thought process.
Yeah.
And so, if I would go to Mr. Hagan and say, hey, we really need new dugouts. I can't get all my players in a dugout, and we go to Tennessee or Alabama and they've got nice spacious dugouts, and then my players come back here and they're like, golly, what is this? And he said, well, that's fine. Are you willing to go out and raise the money for it? And I said, absolutely. Yeah. And so I became a fundraiser.
Yeah.
I knew I had to. I had to. It's not that I had rather been recruiting or coaching or spending time with my family, but I knew in order to get the program to the level where I wanted it, we had to improve our facilities. So, that happened. I raised money for lights. I raised money for, the grandstand area, the new press box, the new dugouts. I did all that. And finally, Mr. Hagan would say, hey, if you raise half of it, the athletic department will cover the rest. And so, I started making progress, and that motivated me. But if you let those pitfalls or those challenges overcome your thought process, then you're not going to have the energy. You're not going to have you're not going to have that fire that your team needs. You're going to be dragging your head, and you don't want to do that. So I decided, hey, I'm going to make the best of it, and I still love my relationship with the players. I still love competing, and I used it as a motivator. Yeah. My players played with a chip on their shoulder. I'd say, guys, we don't have facilities like Mississippi State or LSU, but we're going to show them we can play.
Yeah.
And those facilities aren't going to help them win. It's their performance.
Yeah.
And so I challenge my players with that. So yeah, and then other things. I know every level has different challenges. Yeah. Like youth league coaches, they have challenges with parents trying to tell them how to coach or and then at the same time needing those parents for fundraisers and buying uniforms and all that stuff. That's a balance. Yeah. And it's a challenge, and you have to learn how to navigate those those waters of negativity, and so that you can put the best team you can on the field. And then at the high school level, there's that whole thing, and Jimmy, you know this probably very well, is the kids have a personal hitting instructor at a facility, but are they loyal to that guy or to the coach at the high school?
Yeah.
And so coaches have to overcome that, and it doesn't have to be a competition.
No.
It doesn't have to be. So what's wrong with two coaches getting together and saying, "Hey, let's do what's best for this player"?
Yeah. What I'll typically do in a situation like that is, if a player says to me, Coach, my travel ball coach or my trainer or my whatever coach told me this, that, or the other thing, the way I handle that is I'll say, okay, that's fine. Let's take a look at it this way. Let's try this, okay? And then you know what? You're a big boy. You figure out which one you like, and I'm behind you 100%, and we'll go forward.
That's right. I think so many coaches, I was very demanding when it came to effort.
Yes.
And even the way we get on and off the field and all those kinds of things.
We practice it.
When it came to hitting mechanics or pitching mechanics, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah.
And my way isn't always the perfect way for that player.
Right.
And so sometimes there's a give and take.
Yeah.
And if he's not comfortable with what I'm trying to teach him, then we're going to try something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think coaches in the modern era, I think they do a much better job with that than coaches in my era. We had in my era of coaching, we had a lot of it's my way or the highway type guys.
Yeah.
And you lose a lot of players when you give them an ultimatum.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's see. I mean, I've been kind of jumping into the book a little bit without talking about the book. So like all of the stuff that we kind of just talked about is in the book. But let me ask you this. What made you write this book?
That's a good question. It's going to sound weird, but probably about 12 years ago or 14 years ago, I met with one of my former assistant coaches. He was a head coach at a Division I school in North Carolina, and he had started making some strides in his faith, and so he was always wanting me. Every time he'd see me, he'd say, "Coach, recommend a book by." I was sending him, John Wooden books and Tony Dungy books and people that were strong Christian guys but were great coaches. And so finally I couldn't find any more of those, and he was just going through them. And I said, well, I tell you what, instead of sending you a book, I'm going to send you a text message every morning. And he said, you'd do that for me? I said, absolutely, I'm going to do it. And so in a few weeks, he said, Coach, would you send it to this coach? Would you send it to this coach? The guys on my staff and this guy in my league would really like that. And so I started off with the first 6 months. I had about 10 guys I was sending these motivational, hopefully inspirational text messages to. And now I'm sending those out to 670 people. So I started thinking about that 2 or 3 years ago, and I thought, man, I had so many people say, you ought to write a book and put all of these in a book. And I started doing that, but then I started thinking, if I read a book, I think I would, if it was written by a coach, I would want to know a little bit about the coach and his philosophy and all those things. So it's not just a motivational or inspirational book. It's also a book for coaches. It's about how to coach baseball players. Yeah. We talk a lot about how to coach the game,
right?
But this book is about coaching baseball players, connecting with them. I used that word with you earlier, this evening, and it's sharing your vision with them. It's knowing how to communicate with them,
right?
And all those things, and all of my coaching philosophies through the years, and many things I borrowed from coaches like Ron Polk, like Hal Baird at Auburn, like Jerry Kendall that used to be the coach at Arizona, like Mark Johnson at Texas A&M. I borrowed things. I mean, that's what coaches do. You know, that sounds good. I'm going to try that, and then we try it, and it works. And so I would love to take credit for everything in that book, but it's things that, some of them are my ideas and my way of doing things, but some of them are things that I borrowed from other coaches that really helped me as a coach. And so it was fun writing the book. It really was, because there were some days, I couldn't get in the mood to write, but there were other days when I just felt inspired to write it.
Yeah.
And so, and I do talk about my faith in that book and how my faith got me through some difficult times as a coach and as a husband.
Yeah.
But I think there's some value there, and I hope it doesn't sound too salesy or like I'm patting myself on the back, but I think there's some valuable things in there for coaches that if they take to heart, it will not only make them a better coach, but it'll make them a better communicator, a better visionary, a better husband, a better father. And that's my goal. I just want to add value to coaches because I know the passion that coaches have for the game they coach. Yeah. And I want them to have that same passion for the players they coach.
Well, I mean, I can tell you right off the bat, okay, what we just talked about, okay, so something I learned a long time ago, and I know this is in your book, what you just said. We coach the person before we coach the player, okay?
That's right.
Now, if any coach picks up your book and reads it and understands that and starts to put that into his way of coaching, then it was you writing that book was, everything that coach needed. You know what I mean? Because like you said, you're not going to take everything. It'd be like drinking from a fire hose. So you just have to take what you can. And like I said, that one thing will change a coach's life as a coach.
Yeah, I hope so. And I pray that so. We talked about Ron Polk's book earlier, and that's probably the most complete baseball book I've ever seen. But it's mostly about the game itself.
Yeah, X's and O's. It's more X's and O's.
And this book is more about helping coaches maybe become better coaches. And I that's one of the reasons I had so much fun writing it. And I talk a lot about caring for your players, and different coaches do that in different ways.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a guy that's going around hugging all your players. That's someone. But I had, like, my high school baseball coach was phenomenal. I knew he cared for me, but he probably didn't speak 100 words to me during a season. But man, I knew he had my back, and when he did speak, it meant something.
Yeah.
And so it's different coaches express their love and care for their players in different ways. And just because a guy looks tough and all that doesn't mean he doesn't care for his players.
Yeah.
It's not a book how to coach softly.
Right.
It's a book about how to coach well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I've said it a million times on this show, and I believe this, and this is the way I coach. I'm tough. I can be tough on my players, but I believe that if I have to let them know that I love them and I care for them before I could be tough. Okay?
No doubt.
So once they know that, and then, if I beat them up a little bit, which, happens, afterwards I go over, I put my arm around him, I said, come on, bud. I said, you're better than that. You know I love you to death. I'll do anything for you, okay? I'm on you because I know you're better than that. And then that's great. That's the end of it.
That's it right there. Yeah. And if coaches can become comfortable enough in their own skin to be able to do that, they're going to be better coaches. And my whole thing is we coach them for a short period of time, but they're going to be hopefully a husband for a long time. They're going to be a father for a long time. They're going to be in the workforce for a long time. And the values we teach them in the game that we all love should be able to transfer over to those other phases of their life. Yeah. And if every coach in America took that approach, our communities would be better.
Yeah.
And our workplace would be better, and even our country would be better. If you think about the millions of kids that play sports. But coaches have this opportunity. I had a great father. He was an excellent man, and he taught me a lot. But I got to a stage in my life when I was probably 14. I didn't really listen to my dad like I should have.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, every word that coach said, I listened.
Yeah.
Coaches have influence.
Yeah.
And they can make an impact on players. So we need to take advantage of that time we have with those players to help them to grow, not only as a baseball player, but as a person.
Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've said to parents, he's not going to listen to you. You're his dad. I said, he'll listen to me.
Exactly.
But he's not going to listen to you.
Yeah.
And they look at me and they say, you know what? You're right. I'm like, yeah, I've been doing this a long time.
When he gets to be about 24 or 25 years old, he'll start listening to his dad again.
That's right. My son, my youngest is my only son, and he's my youngest child. He's 25. And the past 2 years, he's been playing in a men's baseball league. And after the first year, he came over to me. He says, you know something, Dad? He says, damn, he said, I wish I listened to you when I was younger. He says, now I understand what you were trying to do.
Exactly. I was the same way when I was a young man. I thought, man, my dad's gotten a lot smarter now.
All right. So this is another one of my favorite topics. Let's talk about adversity and how you help your players deal with adversity, because that's a big part of what we do.
No doubt. I mean, always when I've been asked that question a few times over the years, and I always think about this one player I had. He was a gritty shortstop, played hard. He was a grinder, but he came from a kind of a rough background, and he didn't get a lot of parenting. His parents. He first of all, he's raised by a single mom, and she was very young when she had him, and the father leaves the situation, and so he just sort of grows up by himself. But what he really loved was baseball, and I think baseball saved that young man. But when he came to Kentucky, I was fortunate enough to sign him. The first couple of years, we just didn't hit it off. And finally, he came into my office one day, and he said, Coach, I'm just not happy. And I said, yeah, I've kind of noticed that. What's going on? He said, well, I didn't come to Kentucky to play for a preacher. I came to play for a baseball coach. And I said, when did I ever preach to you? He said, well, you got a Bible on your desk, and you're always having chapel on Sundays, and I feel guilty when I'm not going. I feel like you're not going to like me. And I said, Jeff, that doesn't matter at all. I care for you just as much as I do the other players. And there were a couple of times in practice we went nose to nose, and he just didn't like my style of coaching. But his sophomore year, one night, it was about 2:00 in the morning. I get a phone call, and it was him. And he said, Coach, I got to talk. And so we met at an all-night restaurant in Lexington. I got there about 2:30 in the morning, and I'd never seen this kid like this. He was very emotional. And what happened, Jimmy, is he had fallen in love with this girl, and he went back home to his hometown over the weekend, proposed to her, and she said no.
Oh.
And he was absolutely crushed because he feels like, hey, my father rejected me, my coaches rejected me, and now she's rejected me. And so we talked for about an hour and a half in the early morning hours in that restaurant. And I just spent time with him, and I just listened. And Jimmy, from that point on, that kid, we loved each other. He would, unfortunately, he's passed away. If he was alive today, he would go through a wall for me. I know he would, and I would for him.
Yeah.
Sometimes coaches just need to be patient, and they need to give things time, and we need to listen.
Yeah.
Coaches are great at talking. I've never met a coach that wasn't good at talking, right?
That's for sure.
But man, it's, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
But yeah, I mean, it's so true. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
again, another thing that I've learned over the years is, you need to listen more than you talk. You have to
Yeah.
listen
That's
because
right.
if you don't, you're lost.
And it's hard for coaches to listen
Oh yeah.
sometimes
Oh
because we
yeah.
want to, we want to share that knowledge.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
and my high school coach taught me that. He was a great listener. He didn't talk much, but he was a great listener.
So talk about a little bit about the effect that coaching with purpose has on the long-term effects. We kind of touched on it a little bit about being fathers, good business people, good husbands. What do you think, like, what's your approach to get that? I'm stumbling on my words here because I'm trying to say something. I'm not sure exactly how I want to say it. How do you go about teaching them to be good husbands, fathers, and businessmen?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something that requires a little bit of your time and intentionality. You have to be intentional about it. Like I used to love to bring people in to talk to my team other than myself. And at the high school age and the college age, I wanted my players to know a little bit about finances. How do you manage money? Uh, you know, a lot of kids come to college and they've never been on their own before. How do you manage time? And so we would talk about things other than baseball at least twice a week, and we would be intentional about it, and we would carve out 15 or 20 minutes to talk about how are you supposed to treat your girlfriend. Um, you know, how are you supposed to treat your parents? How are you supposed to treat your coaches and all that? And then I was very fortunate in that I had some friends like one of my very best friends in the world is a guy named Doug Flynn, and he played for the Mets. I don't know if you remember him, but maybe you may be too young, but he won a Gold Glove
Yep.
playing second base for the Mets,
Yep.
and before that he played for the Big Red Machine. But he and I played minor league ball together. He's from Lexington. I'm from Kentucky. When I came to Lexington, we just got closer and closer, and so he knew all these big league players, and Doug would come and talk to my team, and he had guys like Brett Butler, who played for the Dodgers and the Braves, come and talk to my team about bunting and how to handle a bat, and also about life. And then I would have businessmen come and talk to the team. You know this, Jimmy, because you've been around the block a few times, but if college guys started saving their money now, when they get to be my age, they wouldn't have to worry about retirement. If they invested just a little bit,
Yeah.
just a little bit. I didn't know that stuff. My family was very poor, and my father, he was a great dad and a great provider, but we didn't have a lot of extra money to put into a 401k or anything like that. But, people now have that opportunity to do that. And so I saw this statistic the other day. If right out of college, if you start saving 5% of your income, by the time you come to retirement age, you'll be a multimillionaire.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, and it just takes discipline.
Yes.
And so many young men like myself when I was, college age and a little bit older, I didn't have the discipline to do things like that.
Yeah. Me neither.
And I didn't have a lot of money, but if I saw something I wanted, I had to have that instead of putting that money aside and being patient for it. But anyway, that's how we do it. We bring people in, to talk to the team that have great marriages and things like that. And then I try to pour, hopefully positive things into them as well as I coached them. But if we take some time and be intentional about it, and let those guys know that we really care, not only about what they do for us today or tomorrow, but what they become in life, then it'll make an impact.
I love it. I mean, I just got better as a coach from hearing that, because those are things that I never thought of doing. I mean, if I brought somebody in to speak to my players, it was always baseball. But,
Yeah.
no, let's take a different approach, because they're going to need other stuff. Let's give them that. I love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's great to bring baseball guys in. I did that too,
Yeah.
but it's good to carve out just a little bit of time each week for stuff that's going to help them in the future.
Right. So let's talk about your work with Score International. Now, I know you have a strong Christian background, faith-based background, and that's what brought you to Score?
Yes. As a matter of fact, when I got out of coaching at Kentucky, I used to send used equipment and stuff like that to a friend of mine in Tampa, Florida, and he would take these short-term mission trips to the Dominican Republic, because the kids, especially back then, they didn't have, we'd go down there and they would have no shoes, they wouldn't have a glove. And so when I got out of coaching, he called me up and he said, "Hey, you don't have any excuses now, you're going with us." And I really didn't want to go. I'd never been to a third world country before. I thought I was going to get bitten by some bug or get some disease and never make it back to Kentucky. And so I tried to back out. And my wife said, "No, you're not backing out. You gave them your word." And boy, that got me right in the heart when she said that. You don't want to lose your wife's respect. So I went down there, and Jimmy, I fell in love with the kids down there.
Yeah.
They love baseball so much, and they listen. I mean, they didn't know me from Joe Torre, right?
Yeah.
Everything I said, they just soaked it in, and they had great smiles. They had great passion and energy. They just play baseball all the time down there. And so guys like me and you, that's obviously a great environment for us.
Yeah.
And so I started, I went back every year, and then finally about the third year, the executive director and founder of Score International said, "Hey, we need a real baseball guy. Dominican Republic is all about baseball. Would you be our baseball director?" I said, "All right, let me think about that, and I'll go home and talk to my wife about it, and I'll pray about it." And so I said, "Yeah, I want to do that." And so it was great. I mean, I think I've made 30 trips to the DR, and I've loved every one of them. It's interesting. New York is a huge state, but let's take Kentucky and Tennessee and put them together. I think the population, if you put those two states together, it's about 12 million or something like that. That's about the population of the Dominican Republic.
Wow.
The entire nation.
Yeah.
So in the states of Kentucky and Tennessee, I think last year we had maybe 14 players in the big leagues from these two states. The Dominican Republic had like 130. If you think about that, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Because a lot of people in these states take baseball really seriously here, but they play every day down there.
Yeah.
And they, year-round, every day, and they'll come to the ballpark without a glove and just play barehanded. Sometimes they don't have shoes. So it's been rewarding to take equipment and shoes and T-shirts and things like that down there, and just see you give a kid a new baseball glove in the Dominican Republic, or even a gently used glove, and it's like handing one of our kids up here the keys to a car.
Yeah.
I mean, they get so fired up because they've never had one that good, or maybe they've never had one at all. So it's so I did anyway. That's it. So I would take coaches and businessmen from here in the States, and we would go down and put on baseball clinics. And this wasn't just me. We had a lot of help, and we'd put on clinics for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids every week.
That's great.
And then we would share our faith with the kids there. They're very open, very honest. We get bombarded sometimes with people trying to force feed faith to us, whether it's I hate to say this, whether it's a sleazy TV evangelist or whatever, we get a lot of that kind of stuff. Well, down there, it's people are very honest, and they're very open. They're very, they need hope. And one of the things about the Christian faith and serving and following Christ is that he gives us hope. He gives all of us hope. And so, we share those things with the kids there, and they're, again, very attentive and very responsive. And we have boots on the ground down there. We have missionaries, full-time missionaries down there that take these kids in and sometimes find homes for them to live in, or they just, give them a meal.
Yeah.
A lot of kids, I remember reading Albert Pujols' book, and it's so true. I've seen it so many times. He said when he was very young and lived in the Dominican Republic, a good day for him was when he got one meal a day. Yeah. And a lot of people down there eat one meal every 2 days or one meal every 3 days. We have trouble relating to that.
Sure.
And when I get back from the Dominican Republic, I open up that refrigerator I have in my kitchen. I'm going, wow.
Yeah.
How blessed are we to live in this country? And I go to my closet. I've got all these shirts, and I tend to wear the same blue jeans and the same shorts, but I've got extras I don't ever wear.
Yeah.
And we tend to. Men tend to wear the clothes that are comfortable and they like. But but those kids down there, some of them have never had a new pair of underwear. If you think about that. They get hand-me-downs, or they get something that missionaries bring to them.
Yeah.
And not all people in DR are that way. Santo Domingo is a very modern city. It's a great city.
Right.
But the smaller towns out in the country are very, very poor.
Yeah.
But they're very good people, and I love those people.
Yeah. It's amazing. I tip my hat to you and anybody else that takes part in these type of missions, because, again, like you said, we take a lot of stuff for granted, a lot of stuff in this country.
No doubt.
And
I tell you, Jimmy, we when there were 2 years, we invited Mariano Rivera to come down. He's from Panama, but he just has a heart for all the kids, in the Caribbean. But those kids followed him around like a Pied Piper. It was so fun to watch that.
Yeah.
And he was so good with them. He is genuinely a good man with a great heart.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. Well, one last question. If there was one lesson, or one direction for coaches at any level, especially, because this show is geared towards youth coaches, and younger coaches, what kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, I'm gonna hit 2 or 3 things really short here. One is to make your practices fun, and keep the kids moving. A lot of kids at the youth level, they stand around and wait to hit. And if you have to recruit volunteers, other volunteers, just to hit ground balls at kids or to run drills in the outfield, just keep the practice moving, and rotate and spend 15 or 20 minutes on one drill that helps all the players, whether it's a throwing drill or a fielding drill, and just rotate those kids around and make it fun. Yeah. And I know a lot of youth coaches do a great job with that, whether it's getting them an ice cream after practice or whatever, but keep doing that. We lose so many kids, as you know, at around the age of 13 or 14.
Yeah.
That's when kids start doing other things. And one of the reasons they go to other things is because they're not having enough fun playing baseball. Yeah. So we've got to make it fun. People have heard that many times, but it's so true. Yeah. And the other thing is to be intentional about loving your players. He may be a foul-mouthed little kid that shows no respect to anybody. The more you love that kid, the more he has a chance to make it into something really special. And so you don't have to, you don't have to tell him you love him every day. Just show it. Just walk the talk and be that example for that young man, that in the back of his mind, he's saying, one day I can be like him. They need role models.
Yeah. Yeah.
And most guys that coach baseball are, they're real men, and and they're to be respected. And that's the kind of person that boys in our world today, especially in America, they need to look up to real men.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's fantastic. I love it. So if anybody wanted to get in touch with you, I mean, you're not a big social media guy, are you?
I'm on social media, some maybe Instagram. I'm on Facebook some. I used to be on Twitter a lot. I'm kind of getting back into that during the playoffs because I want to see what people are talking about. So yeah, I'm on social media some. I'm not huge on social media, but I do enjoy it some. But I've been on it more since Coaching with Purpose has come out because I'm trying to market my book.
Right.
But and anybody that wants the book, I would love for you to. I'd love to get this book in the hands of every coach because I really believe in what I'm talking about in the book. It's not just words. It's something that's very important to me. And you can find the book Coaching with Purpose on Amazon, or you can go to my website, CoachKeithMadison.com. And you can find a way to get the book there.
Right. And anybody out there listening to this, if you're serious about coaching and you don't get this book, that tells me that you're not really serious about coaching. Okay.
I appreciate that, Jimmy.
Get that book and read it. I promise you'll be sending us both text messages thanking us for, putting you in touch with that book.
I love to hear from my readers. All those hours I put in writing the book, it makes it so worthwhile when I hear from a reader and say, hey, I got this from your book, or I got that from your book. It's a special feeling.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. But I got to tell you, Coach, when you reached out to me, I had to pinch myself because I looked at it and I went, wait a minute. I said, this is Keith Madison. He wants to come on my show. And I'm like, I'm pinching myself. I'm like, this can't be real. So,
yeah. Because I'm not a great social media guy, I love to talk baseball. So I thought, one way to get to know people better and to market my book is through podcast.
Yeah. And I mean, look, for me, it was like, a privilege like you can't imagine and an honor. And I'm so happy to have done this. And, I look forward to catching up to you maybe in January at the convention.
Absolutely. You've got my number now, so give me a text and we'll definitely get together.
That'd be great.
Okay, Jimmy.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you so much.
Well, you might have to go back and listen to this episode time and time and time again because I know for sure that there's no way that you were able to take enough notes as you were listening to get everything that Coach Madison was putting out there. One of the things I have to say that I did forget to mention in the beginning of the show when I was introducing Coach was that, he's also a recipient of the ABCA Lefty Gomez Award, given for a lifetime of service in baseball, both nationally and internationally. It's an incredible honor, and the ABCA only gives out one a year. They started giving it out in 1962, so that means there was only 64 people that have received that honor. I mean, the ABCA Lefty Gomez Award is one of the most prestigious awards in all of amateur baseball. It's a testament to his dedication and commitment to the game that we all love. I got to tell you, for me, it was such an honor to have him on this show. Keith Madison is one of the most respected, well-known icons of the coaching world. I was like a kid in a candy store. It was amazing for me. One of the things, too, that I wanted to talk about was, if you noticed, and again, I want youth coaches, travel ball coaches, community baseball coaches, I want you to understand this, that if you notice throughout the conversation, we didn't talk about X's and O's. What we talked about was how we treat our players, I think the word that Coach Madison used was connect, connecting with your players. How do we connect with them? How do we make them feel good about themselves? How do we build them up, not knock them down? I mean, I see it time and time again, coaches berating players, screaming at them, yelling at them. That's not what we do. That's just not what we do, especially during a game. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to sound like I'm holier than thou. Practice time, yeah, believe me, sometimes I will get on players, and I do it when it's necessary. But I've said it a million times on the show. That player knows before any of that even happens, they know that I care about them. They know that when I'm doing that the reason why I'm doing it is because I'm trying to get the best out of them that I possibly can. When you're playing a game and you're on the field and you're yelling at your players, all you're doing is embarrassing them. And as a matter of fact, all you're doing is you're telling everybody that's there watching that game that you're not really a good coach, because that's not what good coaches do. So, get Keith's book, please. It's a great book. It will give you the direction that you need to become a better coach, to be able to better serve your players. I had said it again in the beginning of the show that one of the most impressive things about Coach Madison was that he was a servant leader, okay? And I think that more coaches need to understand that we're here to serve our players, okay? We're here to help them. We're here to teach them. And, again, pick up that book, read it. It's a great blueprint for you to follow to become the best coach that you could be. So, if you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Visit the website at thectbshow.net. Listen to your favorite episodes and please leave us a review. You can also reach out to the show on social media, X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and get this, the old man has finally got us on TikTok. Keeps me young. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover, please drop us an email at clearingthebases@gmail.com. Your feedback helps us bring you the best content and reach more people in the baseball community just like you. And also, let me know if you'd like to be a guest. Until then, coaches and players, keep practicing, stay positive, and remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you on the next one.